The very first thing that we want people to know about Firefighter Frank is it's not one single cartoon. When we started out doing this, we planned on doing an entire series dedicated to children's safety. And the first cartoon in the series happened to be Firefighter Frank.
I'm Johnny Stockman. I'm the lead animator for the Firefighter Frank cartoon. In the Firefighter Frank cartoon, we used a flashback to the old animation style, frame by frame, kind of cell type animation, and we used the program called Toon Boom, which lets you do that. And you have drawing modes and scene planning modes where you can draw in one mode and create movement in the other mode.
Every time you see a face of a child come in here and they're playing and they're happy and everything, we want to protect that child. And so that was really the inspiration behind the whole thing. Now, as far as actually writing the story, this is the true story. You'll only hear it here. And that is that I locked myself in my room for like 4 months. I borrowed Ricky's kids' firefighters play set. And I actually created this world that Andy lives in my bedroom, and had to live in that world for 4 months while the story was coming together.
When we started talking up the Firefighter Frank project, we didn't really have time to storyboard because we wanted to get right into it. So the only real idea I had to kind of make the characters come up off the background more is in the distant shots, all the backgrounds are hand-drawn and hand-colored with color pencils. And in the close-up shots of the characters, it's just more gradients and stuff like that. But in the distant shots, it's all pen and color pencil. So it kind of helps the characters pop up off the background a little more.
My favorite characters are Jose and Stubbs. I mean, there's just no other way around it, because I think that they're the perfect combination to play with each other and get mad at each other and fuss and fight and everything else. And that's especially true because Jose has a Hispanic voice, and Stubbs sounds like a New York taxi driver, so they're kind of at odds all the time.
But I'm afraid of water. You want me to tie you in a knot again?
And then it took a lot of time. I mean, you always learn on the first one how much time it's going to take. You know, there's a lot of research that goes into it. And one of the things that you want to be careful of, especially on something like this, is that you've covered all your bases. You've talked to as many professionals as possible, and you have all your information correct. You do not want to send the wrong information to a child on what to do in the event of emergency.
We've been working on the Firefighter Frank project for 2 years, and probably 1.5 years of that has actually been drawing and animating it almost every day. When I create a scene, I usually have a list of what is being said, what was read in, and that I have the audio for. I put in the audio, I put in the characters, I go ahead and do the mouth movement and get that lined up in the backgrounds. And then after that's done, I will go back and insert little vignettes that I could see going inside that, such as like cutaways, backgrounds. Like in Firefighter Frank, I actually animated the dry erase board behind them when they were doing all the training.
Don't stop to grab your favorite toy. Don't stop for anything. Get out of the house and stay out.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hello, boys and girls.
Or 40 to 50 Cub Scouts, however many was in the room. It was a real experience because we watched this cartoon day in and day out during the production process, and we would all laugh at this part and that part and everything else. And quite frankly, what happened was these kids, they were so quiet you could hear a pin drop. And I remember at the showing being very worried about that, because I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, it's a bomb. These kids didn't like this. And then I walked up to the Cub Master afterwards and I said, these kids didn't laugh at all. I said, it was so quiet in here. I said, should I be worried about this? And he looked at me and laughed, and he said, you don't have any kids, do you? And I said, no. And he said, you need to learn the difference between kids that are engaged in something and kids that are they're not paying attention. He said, I've been with these kids for over a year, and he said, if they weren't interested in this and they weren't engaged in it, he said they would have been pinching each other, fighting and making noise in the bleachers. And he said, no, these kids were totally engaged in this. And the funny thing is, he was totally right. We could see that in the results of the testing.
My favorite character is Garden Jose.
And my favorite character in Fighter Frank was Spot. And my favorite part of the movie is when they were practicing the fire drill and when Andy saved all them, and then the girl said, "How handsome," and he's heroic.
Andy saved us. He's our hero.
That's right, Dad. Andy called 911, helped us out of the house, and directed us to our safe place by the old oak tree.
I'm 40 plus years old, and what that means is that I don't think there's any greater calling than to be doing something that'll save the life of a child. There would be no greater honor in my life than to receive cards and letters from parents whose child found one thing funny or one thing that they were able to remember out of the cartoon that helped them to save their life. I mean, that would make my life, and I think the lives of all the other people that work here, complete.